how to approach trades and get back value. Okay, don't just throw crap out there. First of all, if you want to get back value, the problem is you have to have valuable assets to move. The one thing I love about Sleeper is you can go into the trade button and it brings up the whole league and you could scroll through everybody's roster. You could see what everybody has on one screen. Look at a guy or gal in your league who's got some okay players and has got some good draft capital.
See what teams need. Where are their weaknesses? Do you have something that could fill that gap? I don't like using the trade block in my leagues because I think all that does is it just sends out a beacon to be like, hey, you can come get this guy for cheap. That's not the reality of the situation, but that's how everybody perceives it. So I have tried to stop using the trade block as much as I can, or if you're going to do it, only put up one or two players at a time, because I think that doesn't send the message that, oh, everybody's for sale.
Yeah.
Which when in reality that is the case.
If I have this team, someone DMs me, hey, is anyone on your team for sale? Yeah, everybody is. By all means, fire away. And also, when you approach someone, is player A available? Yes, they are. What do you want for him? No. You asked me, you make an offer. That's how this works, okay? Yeah. Now, what do you want for him? What are you looking for? Make an offer. And it's okay to cold call people on offers too. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Hey, sent you an offer. Look it over. Let me know what you think. We close? No, I'm good. I don't want to move that guy. Okay, no problem. Don't let people dictate to you. This is your team. It's okay to say no. Be honest. Be open with people. Start dialogues. You have to understand something too. I say that it's okay to cold call people on trades. You're in a scenario where you might have to do a little bit of dialogue before you pull a trigger. You might have to do some selling when you're trying to sell these guys to explain why it benefits you. And you know what? When I'm having a situation like this team, I'm a little self-degrading. My team's not going anywhere. This guy helps me more, or helps you more than me. Stuff like that. I just want to get younger. I want to build around younger guys. You need to win now. Stuff like that. These are all things that I will say when trying to make a trade.
Absolutely great method, because too many people will highlight why the pieces you're acquiring are bad. If I'm going to talk to somebody, I'm not going to talk trash about the players I'm trying to get.
Yeah.
And saying that I'm doing you a favor. It's I'm doing you a favor, and this is a player that can help you now. Whereas, hey, I'm trying to get a pick for 2023. Help a brother out. I'm just trying to get younger. This guy can help you now. That honest interaction is so much better and will get you 1,000 times farther than ever trying to talk crap about a player you're trying to get. Because in the mindset, it's why do you want this player then? And I just hear that too much. Where it's
I never understood that.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm like, well, okay, if you're so down on this player and you're acting like you're doing a favor by taking him off my hands, why do you want him?
Just be honest. Look, dude, I'm not winning the league this year. Yeah. You have a shot. You're a playoff team. This guy's going to help you. He's not going to help me. He's going to die on my roster. And I'm not going to get any better. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with saying that. So the first thing I'm doing, I'm going to sell off any higher profile players. And, a lot of times a name gets a stigma attached to it in a positive way. Doesn't mean a good thing for the score sheet, but hey, if you could use it to your advantage, you should do so. I'm looking for quote unquote depreciating assets that are still productive and can be acquired cheaply for some lower draft capital or some lower tiered players that maybe somebody wants to take a shot on, like somebody wants to take a shot on a LaVisca Chenault, something like that. A better team that can afford to have a player like that on their roster and wait and hope for.
If you're going to acquire assets that aren't draft capital right now, you need to acquire guys that are going to be worthwhile for your team for a while, or guys you can acquire to flip later. Sometimes to get better, when you burn it down, you got to dump these guys. It's just how it has to be. And while it's unfortunate to say goodbye to good pieces like Mahomes, who probably still has 10, maybe 15 years left in this league, you never know. What I'm looking for in trades, I just want draft capital. There's no player I want to get on this team right now. I'm building this team back up solely from a draft capital, from the draft. I just don't think there's a lot of trades you can get done for players right now with what you have. But I think you might be able to get at least assets on your team, draft capital wise, to then draft players to fill out this roster later. This is one of the rebuilds where I think it's going to be a lot less productive struggle and more of kind of a scorched earth rebuild
Okay.
where you're selling off every single asset you possibly can and basically building again from the ground up. And it's hard when you get yourself into this position, and it just usually just comes down to a lot of bad trades or you kind of invest in the wrong players. And that just happens. And a lot of times it's unlucky. Sometimes you invest in players and you just kind of get lucky and they end up being a great asset. I'm not going to say that every player I've ever drafted. I drafted Elijah Moore last year based on just draft value where he fell to me in a draft.
Same.
Didn't really love Elijah Moore, and now his outlook's a little bleak, but it's one of those things where if I just didn't draft based on what I thought was best player available, if I would have gone with a guy I just happened to like more, I probably wouldn't have ended up with what seems to be a player with a decent outlook, at least as a wide receiver too. So it's one
Yeah.
of those things where building now, you just need all of the ammo in the chamber that you can get when it comes to
Agree.
draft capital. And that's how you're going to flush out this roster with players that can hopefully one day bring you a championship. My biggest bit of advice on how to approach trades and get back value. Always try, and this is my golden rule of trading, especially when you're in a situation like this, you always want to get plus assets back. So if you're sending one piece, you're getting two pieces back or three. I doubt you're going to move anybody for four right now. If you're sending two assets, get three or four back at minimum. Because what that's going to do is eventually you're just going to end up with this abundance of assets, especially draft capital right now. You can trade out a couple years from now because you're going to need picks in 23 and 24. 2024 picks are as cheap as they're ever going to be today.
That's
They're
true.
not going to get any cheaper from now till the draft of 2024. I know it's a
Yeah.
long way out, but it's one of those things where they're not going to be any cheaper anytime soon. They're going to continue to appreciate in value. And that's a nice thing with draft picks is they always appreciate in value. Draft picks at the end of the day are always going to trump player value in a vacuum. I know it's not one to one depending on positions and things like that, but draft capital is just such a powerful thing in leagues because it's always everybody wants draft capital, but there's only so little to go around.
I like Bob's thoughts on stocking up those 24 picks because the fact is, if you get a bunch of those, when people are on the clock next year in a really strong running back class, be like, I'll give you a 24 first for it right now for this 108. I'll throw a third in there too because you have so many of them. You're playing with house money then. Use your future assets to build now and then keep acquiring future assets.
It's really important with that method of if you're going to take lesser valuable assets to try to, with quantity exact to the quantity or the quality of assets,
Mhm.
it's really important to keep grease in the wheel and keep making those types of deals where you're acquiring plus assets. That's the biggest thing for me is that's the only way that works. Because especially if you're going to spend going the other way to go 2-for-1 later, you need to make like three of those plus asset deals to do one of those negative assets deal or minus asset deals. Trading is such a gut feel, and then obviously equating the assets in your head and things like that. But if there's ever a trade that you're just not, if you just have something going off in your head where it just doesn't sound good, don't make it. That's 9 times out of 10, those are the deals that end up being the ones that screw you over later. But I will say I do have a video, 10 of my top tips for trading. Go check that out. I will link that video in the comments and at the end of the video in the end screen.